How do we know the way? Thomas, I've decided, is the patron saint of those who want clearly defined categories, who want a logical story, who want an underlying reason, who want a nicely arranged, bullet-pointed answer that makes sense of life. So when he asks his question to Jesus, Jesus responds with mystery. With mystery. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, this is a very important part of this text. This is the number 6 time in John's Gospel when Jesus utters the words, I am, in Greek, ego eimi, I am. And why is this important? Well, if you have a Bible and you want to open it up, you can open it up to the front to Exodus chapter 3, starting at verse 13. Moses says to God, if I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. I am who I am. And he said further, thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. I am. Thomas wants a really neat little package of answers. And Jesus says, I am. And he gives him this great, big, deep mystery. The I am statements in John's gospel, they reveal who Jesus is, and they reveal God's desire to be in relationship with his people. Here are the 6 I am statements if you want to know where they are. John 6, verse 35. Jesus says, I am the bread of life. And that comes after he breaks bread and breaks a couple of loaves of bread and feeds 5,000 people. Chapter 8, verse 12, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And that comes right before he begins to heal a man born blind from birth. Chapter 10, verse 7, we heard part of this last week. I am the gate for the sheep. And then in verse 11, I am the good shepherd. And then in chapter 11, we hear the story of Lazarus dying and Jesus coming and calling him forth from the tomb. And we hear Jesus say at 11:25, I am the resurrection and I am the life. And then in our text today, verse 6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And then in the first verse of the next chapter, Jesus says, I am the vine, and you are the branches. All of these revealing who Jesus is and revealing what God desires from his people. So like Moses, Jesus is leading God's people to a freedom, to a liberation, to liberate their lives from the ways of the world. And what are the ways of the world? Sin, oppression, brokenness, death. Those are the ways of the world. Those are the ways of the world. Those are the ways that influence so much of the thinking out there that it's okay that a few people die so that our economy can get back to being strong. There's a disconnect there. There's a disconnect there. Jesus, like Moses, comes to lead us on a new journey back to God. A journey to freedom. Freedom from sin, oppression, brokenness, and death, and all of the what happens when we think that way. Jesus leads us on a journey to a life that's full of God's life. A journey to truth. To truth. And what is truth? Pilate will ask Jesus this in the 19th chapter here. He said, what is truth? What is truth? Jesus answers that. God's truth is God's command. And what does God command? He answered that in chapter 13. Love one another as I have loved you. Love. Love is the way, the truth, and the life. Presiding Bishop Michael Curry said, if it doesn't look like love, it doesn't look like Jesus. And that's true.